Everyone, welcome to Spotlight. I'm Edjuenka, and this evening we have again another important program for you. You know, of course, of the attack on our financial services sector from the American organization, and as well as the G8 people like Francois Hollande of France and Germany and Austria and everywhere over the world. People are attacking us. They claim to have gotten leaks from two companies in the BVI of a lot of names and transactions of rich people, and they are making up all kinds of stories about us. I suspect trying to destroy our financial services sector, of which we so heavily depend. We're going to be discussing all the various aspects and trying to flesh out some of the things that's been said and done. A lot of the misinformation that the UK government, David Cameron, refuses to correct. The Mr. Osborne, the person in charge of Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, continue to kowtow to the false information and refuse to correct that information when they know for a fact that the BVI is one of the most transparent jurisdictions. It has 21 tax information exchange agreements. It complies, it's proactive, it's not a tax haven, and they keep using the same words over and over, trying to destroy our industry. The governor in the BVI is responsible for our national security. Certainly anywhere else in the world, an attack on 60% of your economy would be also a national security threat. And certainly as a person responsible for our national security, he should be in the forefront of defending the people of the BVI. That just goes to show you the double standard that exists when British talk about having good relationships with the BVI and fostering these relationships because of our quote-unquote British heritage. And we know what that British heritage really is. But we're going to have all these discussions tonight. Also, I have with me Dr. Hlscc. He's the Director of Virgin Island Studies at the Hlscc Community College. He's bringing about a series of lectures, which is very important to the BVI, coming up shortly at the Hlscc Auditorium, Eileen L. Parsons Auditorium, International Law and the Right of Non-Self-Governing Territories to Self-Determination, the case of the BVI. That's one lecture coming up. Another one is the cost of freedom, this being the 175 years of full freedom. He's going to address slavery and emancipation in a lecture. And these are a couple of very important lectures coming up in Hlscc Community College, and you need to go and check those out. We're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors. We're going to come back with Dr. Hlscc, and we're going to talk about international law and the right of non-self-governing territories to self-determination, a case of the BVI, in the lecture that's coming up with Dr. I think it's Hilaire. Yeah. Dr. Hilaire. Right after these words from our sponsors, keep it locked right there at the Spotlight.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Dr. Hlscc. Dr. Smith, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll make you a regular.
So it seems quite regular.
Regular, yeah. You have a lot of good information, important information, so it's always a pleasure to have you on Spotlight. You initiated this is your initiative, this lecture series, this type of lecture series.
Well, it's an ongoing. It was something that the college did before. My task is just to get it going again. But the college has been doing public lectures for some time. I think they had a lull for some time now, and one of the tasks that I've been given is to get them up and going.
You appear to have a goal. What is it?
Well, the goal is to bring that whole concept of academic debate to the community and get people thinking, stimulate us academically, mentally, on some of the the burning issues of the day. And that's the idea, because I think my whole goal is to kind of bring us back to who we are as Virgin Islanders. I grew up in Cane Garden Bay, and at any one afternoon you could find the men in the community sitting under a tree arguing about points of international news and things like that. So I think the Virgin Islander has always been someone who had an inquiring mind. And I just want us to do that and to use the college as the means to do it, to bring this kind of debate to the fore.
Have you been attracting the people that you want to attract to the debates? You think you're still a little behind in your goal in that area?
Well, so far we've done one lecture. That is, we did one during Education Week with Dr. Charles Whitley. He spoke about education, voices of the past, people who were involved in bringing the education system to what it is. And it was very interesting. That particularly was targeted at the teaching fraternity in terms of teachers within the school system, as it was Education Week, and the wider public. This other lecture now is the first in terms of one that is targeted to the general public, and then the other lectures that I would be doing. So it's something that we are now kind of getting back on track in terms of where we were. I remember attending other lectures at the college in the past, but as I said, seemingly over the past few years, there has not been that many. There's the Frederick Pickering lecture, some of the things that we hope to see keep going so that the public can, come into the college too. So it's not just an institution that caters for students working towards a specific degree, an associate degree, but also to the average man on the street who just want to come and be involved in some academic discussion.
Because I noticed that in the one lecture you have, it speaks to nationalism,
Yes.
nation building, and the one that's coming up in April, coming up next week, speaks in nation building, and the one that you're personally going to present speak about culture and history.
Yes. Yeah.
And that seems to be, is that your thrust? Is that going to be of your focus, where you want to bring the history back into our memory and the culture back into our memory?
I think that is a part of it. But in addition to looking at the history, we also want to ensure that we look at some of the current topics of the day, international issues, so as it were, so that we don't feel like we are isolated and closed in our little world, but that we are aware of what is going on. There's a lot of debate now in the community about certain things. You talk about in the news, you talk about the financial services sector and all that, and some of these are issues that we would like to get some formal lectures on. So that we can have people come in and present ideas to us, and we can then list to these ideas and then debate them and discuss them among ourselves.
We get factual academic information.
Yes, yeah, because it's something that you don't have to go to a major university. We bring in the university to you. Dr. Eric Williams in Trinidad years ago, he said he would give lectures in the public square. So people didn't have to go to Harvard or anywhere else. He came from Harvard and he was just here, and now say, well, look, here I am. I'm going to give the lectures free of cost. And I think this is what we are doing. So something that you would normally go and register at a university to be able to take part in, we want to bring it to the average person, because the college sees itself as that body to be able to help to educate the citizenry.
Okay, so the upcoming lecture, April 25th, that's Friday?
Next week, Thursday.
Next Thursday, April 25th. Is going to be the topic is International Law and the Right of Non-Self-Governing Territories to Self-Determination. The right of non-self-governing territories to self-determination, the case of the BVI, and this is by Dr. Max Hilaire from Morgan State University. What is going to be in that lecture? What you expect? What you hope that will be covered?
I should say that in terms of a little bit of a background, for me, where I stand is that for us in the Virgin Islands, we are, in terms now, we are referred to as an overseas territory. Mm-hmm. We've come down over the years, change of name. We've been a colony, we've been a territory, now we're an overseas territory. We've been a dependent territory at one point. Now we're just an overseas territory.
It's like black people.
Yes, it just changed. The name changes, but the relationship, it has been said, it continues to improve. But then it brings us to the point that we are not fully responsible for ourselves politically. So we have to do. So under United Nations law, there are certain issues as it relates to non-self-governing territory. And the United Nations, they have a committee referred to as the Decolonization Committee, where they discuss these issues and they meet with different bodies and some of the former colonial rulers to say, well, look, this is our position. How do you see it? What is happening with your territories? In that, we've seen changes. For example, the French territories in the Caribbean are now no longer territories, but just overseas department. They have been subsumed into the parent country, as it were. But for us in the Virgin Islands, our status continues to be one where we are not self-governing. And I think this is what we are looking at in terms of, well, what is our position in terms of international law? What are our rights as a people? And I think that is something that I feel that we should discuss. And the basis for that is that if you look at our Constitution, the preamble, one of the statements of preamble within our 2007 Constitution, it affirms that as Virgin Islanders, that we generally express our desire to become a self-governing people and to exercise the highest degree of control over our affairs as a country. This is what it says in the preamble to our Constitution. So our Constitution bears out the fact that we are constantly evolving and developing to that point of self-government. So it's something that we continue to work towards.
But it seems like we are not prepared for self-government, and the United Nations Committee wants wants decolonization, and of course the UK is a member of the UN, and so you get the sense that the UK is feeling under pressure to decolonize, but we as children don't want to go.
Yeah.
And now it seems as though we are about to be subsumed in the quote-unquote parent country.
Yeah, but and it's interesting that you should say that, because if I were to give a little background, I would go back to 1965, 1965 Constitutional Review with Mary Proudfoot. There was a letter written by a group of Anagadians that was submitted to the Constitutional Review. And in fact, what they noted was that, they thought that, we need to look seriously at this issue, because at that time they were talking about ministerial system of government. And so the question of independence, the question of self-determination, all of those were things that were raised. But then one of the points that they made in that letter is that we need to be educated about what it means to govern ourselves. And that's what the point that I saw in that letter far back as 1965, where they were saying, as a people, we need to know what it means. Whether or not we have done that from 1965 until now is questionable.
Yes.
And then again in 1993, during our Constitutional Review, again, the question of independence, the commissioners were saying that there was not a groundswell of support for the question of independence. But they noted that bear in mind that the issues that were raised and where we were as a territory, that the commission at that time recommended that an assessment be carried out based on the cost, obligations, and liabilities of independence, so that when the time comes, the major implications for independence are known and appreciated. So I think, even at that point in 1993, we were saying that, we need to look seriously at. And I think a commission was established a commissioner was appointed to look at that issue and report back to government. I'm not sure what happened after that. But, the point is that it is an issue that has always been with us, but we have not educated ourselves. Like the Guardians were saying, these things are going to come, we need to know what they bring in. And I think in that, from the college perspective, we can help in terms of forward in the academic debate, which would give us the information we need to act upon.
What will we come away with after this lecture? What do you think the benefits of this lecture will be to the people that hears it?
But I think the benefit would be an opportunity for us to hear from an expert in the field what it is the United Nations is actually saying and doing. Because we don't even get into those discussions. So the whole decolonization committee meets regularly, their debates and their reports that are written. But I can't ever recall us having a discussion about what the United Nations is actually saying. So is it that we're going to wake up one morning and hear that the United Nations has said that there should be no colonies and everybody should be on their own, and then we would be left with, so what does that mean for us? We have not thought about that. We have not discussed it. So I think what I hope that this lecture would do, it would bring to the forefront for us here in the Virgin Islands, what are these issues as it relates to the United Nations, the international laws that the United Nations operate upon in terms of their discussions with the countries who are members of the United Nations as it relates to their territories, because we are not in on those discussions.
Yeah. And this is going to happen April 25th. That's next Thursday, 7:30 p.m. at the Eileen L. Parsons Auditorium.
Yes.
Now, there are some other lectures coming up, and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit, a couple of minutes about the other lectures. And, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to finish up this segment with you before I take the break. So, you got some other lectures coming up. Talk to us about the other lectures coming up.
And the other lectures, now, as I would say, I have to earn my keep too at the college. And so I've been tasked to give a few public lectures in terms of my research and what I've been doing as it relates to the history of the Virgin Islands. This year is 175 years of full freedom within the British Caribbean. The slavery was abolished in 1834. After that, there were 4 years of apprenticeship, slavery by another name. So freedom didn't come until 1838. And in recognition of that, I'm going to do a series of lectures. The first lecture is on May 23rd. And Hlscc Community College at the Eileen Parsons Auditorium, and it's on the cost of freedom, looking at the issues of slavery and emancipation within the British Caribbean, particularly within the Virgin Islands. On the following week, on the 29th of May, I would then take the lecture to Virgin Gorda. On the college campus in Virgin Gorda, we would then have that lecture and a discussion and debate on the issues again of the cost of freedom. On the 6th of June, I would be in Anegada at the Claudia Creaky Educational Center, where we would then have the similar lecture, but each one would be tailored according to the island and based on their experience coming out of slavery. And then on the 9th of June, the final lecture would be on Jos Van Dyke at the Methodist Church grounds, and that's Sunday afternoon. So it's a series of lectures, each one focusing on the cost of freedom, the issues of slavery and emancipation within the Virgin Islands, each lecture being tailored to suit the community in which it would be presented.
Okay, and that lecture, the benefit, what we're going to come away with from that presentation? That
presentation is designed to help us to understand what our ancestors had to go through in terms of freedom, the freedom that we take for granted today. What was the cost to them? You know, because
and we're not talking about money.
And money, and because recently there was an article in one of the online newspapers where they talked about the compensation money. 11 million pounds was assigned, but the British government raised the loan for 11 million pounds to pay compensation to the slave owners in the British Caribbean, the Virgin Islands included. That was a cost factor because that was the agreement that they had to make with the slave owners, the plantation owners within the British Caribbean, in order to give up their property, which was the slaves, because the slaves were considered property.
Yes,
they were saying, I can't give my property without some kind of compensation. So 11 million pounds was raised in a loan, and that compensation went to the slave owners in the British Caribbean. In addition to that, the period of apprenticeship, which I just spoke about, in fact, the slaves themselves had to work for free for 4 additional years after emancipation in 1834, and that was considered a part of the compensation package. So even our forefathers, they too had to work to pay for their own freedom. You know, so the cost of freedom is something that I think we need to understand, that you know, the freedom that we take for granted today, that there's more to it in terms of the what was happening at that time, the whole process of slavery and emancipation, and what that meant for persons who were enslaved within the Virgin Islands.
It's being said that we've come out of slavery with a certain mentality. We label it the slave mentality. Some social scientists have called it post-traumatic slave syndrome. Is that something that you're going to go into as well?
Well, not necessarily, but what I would look at basically is the facts surrounding what was happening at that point in time, because we have a lot of misconceptions in terms of what happened during that process, the transition
on the plantation
right,
era.
and even within the Virgin Islands, within the Caribbean. And what I want to do is for us to address the issues so that we have an idea as to exactly what happened within the Virgin Islands in that transition period from slavery to freedom.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all we got time for. So make sure you go to Hlscc, Eileen at Parsons Auditorium, April the 25th. That's next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. to hear Dr. Max Hilaire talk about international law and the right of non-self-governing territories to self-determination, the case of the BVI.
Right.
Thank you very much for hanging with me again tonight.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Hope to see you again. There's a lot of things we got to discuss, a lot of information you have in that head there.
Thank you for having me. It's to me, it's a lot of stuff. You know, I've been fascinated by it. I'm excited by it, and I'm eager and waiting to share the information.
And we're going to put it out here on JTV.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. We're going to come right back after these words from our sponsors with Troy Christopher. We're going to talk about the events of the day with in regards to the financial services sector. Don't go away. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these words.
Spotlight is brought to you by Virgin Island Motors, Tortola Concrete Limited, Bolo's High Tech Printery, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.